I'm Sasha Stefanovic from Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Brags in the Stands.
Welcome to Boilers in the Stands. I am your host, Greg Braggs Jr., and alongside me, as always, is my guy, Kraig Bowers of Boiler Diehards. If you're not following Boiler Diehards on Facebook, one of the most popular groups you can find to talk Boilers basketball, Boilers football, and everything else in between when it comes to the different sports in Boilermaker athletics. So, big show tonight. We've had a lot of fun this season, a lot of big guests. Matt Painter started the year off with us. We had Fletcher Lawyer, the week they went number one in the country. And now tonight, our special guest coming up very shortly will be Ethan Morton, the glue guy for your Purdue Boilermakers. So really excited to get this thing rolling. Bobby Riddell will be joining us here in just a few moments. But before we kick things off, I do want to shout out our sponsors, one of which is our guys at the Collector's Cave. Make sure you're following the Collector's Cave for all their different sports autograph memorabilia. Go to www.thecollectorcave.com and also keep an eye out for different announcements regarding future signings and public meet and greets. Those guys have been really, really good to us here at Brags in the Stands, so I wanted to give them a shout out from the start. Kraig, big week here, the last 7 days of Boilers basketball. We got Michigan State and Wisconsin down to the wire, 67-65 with about 12 seconds left in that game. Michigan State leads, but as far as Purdue's concerned, took one on the chin to the Rutgers and then turned around with two road wins at Ohio State and then at Penn State at the Palestra, a neutral site game that they ended up moving to a quad one. And I know you're really excited about it. So why don't you give your thoughts on and everything that's transpired for Purdue over the last week?
Well, I mean, I think we were all waiting, right? This team wasn't going to go undefeated. We knew that all year long. And the question was going to be when they faced a little bit of adversity, how did they bounce back from that? And, I listen to a lot of other podcasts and analysts on national shows. And as that week drug on, the narrative was, oh, these guys showed us something. I think a lot of people thought when Purdue lost their first one that maybe, it was going to have a UConn thing where they lost a couple or like some other teams have done that look good early. But they bounced back and they won a hard one. They won one at Ohio State that we've seen the type of game that we've lost in that manner too many times at different points. We pulled one out in that way. And then you go into Penn State and in a crowd and in an arena and a situation that was way crazier than had it actually been truly at Penn State, against a team that's just full of shot makers all the way around and had contrasting styles. And you really wondered how that was going to go. And they really win that one handedly. So I think Purdue proved a lot just of hey, we're not this first 15 games won the fluke, or the first 13, 14, whatever. We really are this good. And they turn around and win 2 on the road. I called that stretch going into it, in my mind, one of the 2 toughest stretches that they have in the entire season of a 3 or 4 game string. So I think it really showed a lot in terms of just kind of the mettle that Purdue team is made up of.
Absolutely. And it's never a day off in the Big Ten. So we're going to have more battles to come. Joining us as always, as he's given us been so gracious with his time with us, Bobby Riddell, joining us once again here tonight while we, await our big guest of the night, Ethan Morton. Bobby, how you doing? How's everything going? Busy week in Purdue Boilermakers basketball the last 7 days, 3 games in 7 days. How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. It was certainly a long road trip as we left for Ohio State and just stayed out there and went on to Philadelphia to then visit the Palestra, which was a super cool arena where we took on Penn State. And man, what an environment that was. It kind of felt like a sectional championship kind of environment, as far as just like that older, intimate environment as far as the arena goes. And then it was a packed house with a lot of fans in there, and it was a great atmosphere. I mean, it's sometimes because you have the radio headset on, you sometimes can't get like a full gist of the crowd noise, and sometimes I'll even try to like pop off one of the ears to see if I can hear exactly how loud it is, because it muffles it sometimes when you got the headset on. But sure. Whenever I did take it off a little bit, I was like, man, this place is really rocking. So for us to be able to have the type of second half we had and silence a lot of that pro Penn State crowd was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a big week, so we're excited to bring on our special guest of the night. Without further ado, joining the show for the first time ever is the glue guy for our Purdue Boilermakers. Ethan Morton joins the show. Really appreciate you coming on and carving out some time tonight. How you feeling? We just looking back at Purdue's socials, they put a picture of you up that I think kind of embodied the week that was Purdue. I don't know if they caught you in a moment where you just were resting your head, but you look absolutely gassed here after, beating Penn State in convincing fashion in the second half. What was this last week like for you? And then that game in particular, taking down Penn State in a hostile environment.
Yeah, definitely a long week. Didn't start out great, obviously, but we didn't really have much time to think about it. We turned right around and had 2 big road games, and luckily, we were able to right the ship on Thursday, and we were able to keep it going on Sunday. Sunday, like Bobby kind of hit on, unbelievable atmosphere. The crowd was great, super cool arena, and obviously anytime you play Coach Shrewsbury, you have to be ready, just from a scout standpoint, because they're going to run a lot of good stuff, and him and Coach Payne know each other pretty well, so there's going to be a lot of adjustments on adjustments, and all that kind of stuff. So, but overall, it was a great week, but definitely a long week on the road.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, I think people don't realize you guys still got to do homework through all of that. Too,
yeah.
Not like the homework takes a day off either.
Well,
So
not last week, Braggs. They were still off.
You guys are still off. Okay.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah,
I haven't gone to school in 2 decades. I'm a little 40 years old, almost 40 years old now. So I don't remember. I didn't go to college. Only time I went to college was my friends would invite me there and I'd drink. And then they'd be like, what's your major? I'm like, yeah, science.
And that
Whatever.
first day back in class from a long road
Did
was
you
a hell of
just
a lot
say
better than you went
science?
to.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd make up a different major every time I went to college town. Of course.
You would do that, Braggs.
Of course I would. So Ethan, getting into this season, I think one of the bigger shocks, I think, for Purdue fans is the fact that you guys were able, last year you were a part of a team that was the first Purdue men's basketball team to ever get to number 1 in the country. And that was a big achievement for you guys as a team, Matt Painter as a coach, program, but for the fans as well. This is something I think fans really wanted. And I don't think anybody expected you guys to get back to the top of the mountain this season. And not only did you do that, but you stayed up there for quite a while. What do you think you learned through the process of last year becoming the hunted as the number 1 team in the country and now carrying over to this year and getting back to that spot? What do you think you learned specifically or personally from, having to go through like each team being your Super Bowl?
Yeah. It's definitely tough. Last year, I think it was a great experience for us just because, it was every night. And we kind of knew that, I think, like before the season. I think that's where we kind of expected to be most of the year. So we were prepared for it. This year is a little bit different. I'll be honest. You always have a goal of wanting to be ranked number 1 and, have a lot of success as a team. But, like a lot of people, I figured, we're pretty young. Even guys like myself, haven't, played a lot consistently up until now. And, so I just didn't know what to expect. I figured early on there'd be some growing pains and some adjustments to make. And, I would always tell the guys in the fall, like, where there's going to be some storms we got to weather, like, but as long as we keep getting better every day, like as the season goes on, like I think, we could be really good. Like my freshman year, we were young, but we got better as the year went on. So, but after that Portland trip, obviously things change a little bit. And it's a good thing, for the guys that have been around. We experienced that last year. So I think we have the knowledge of, we're going to get everybody's best shot. As we saw this whole week, I think we took one of Rutgers' better shots, even though they're a great team and they're one of those teams. I think for us, they're just always a tough matchup just because they're a tough matchup for anybody just because they play so hard. They're really good defensively. But, I think we learned after that game, it's every night in this league is super tough. And then when you're highly ranked on top of it, you're going to have to prepare for everybody's best game. But I think the young guys have kind of taken to that, especially after the loss. And like I said, we righted the ship and they've been, they've been awesome. They've been, the biggest reason for our success, obviously besides, having Zach.
Hey, Ethan, you kind of mentioned maybe this ascent happened even quicker than maybe you were thinking coming into the season. Was there a point in practice at some point with these 2 freshmen? You talked about, their role in fitting in to kind of make that happen for this team. Was there a point where you were like, oh, okay, like we might be really, really good this year?
Yeah. I think there was a couple for me, like, because obviously Braden, really didn't. He was kind of hurt until the fall. So I saw with Fletcher, just even like in the summer, like I was like, I think this kid, I think he's really good, but you still like, you still kind of withhold judgment until, you actually play in a game, I guess, because it's just different, right? And but then after the first few games, I was like, okay, so like it's real, and I knew it was real, but now I've seen it, time and time again, and obviously he's just gotten better and better. Taking the shots that he took this week and making just, big time shots time and time again. So so huge for us that he can do that and just not afraid of the moment. I mean, both those guys aren't. But some of the shots he hit were just so big time. And I really took away his first signature shot at Rutgers, by screwing up on defense at the end of the game. But luckily, he was able to get another crack at it at Ohio State, which was great. And with Braden, it was, as soon as he started practicing, just you could just tell there was something different. And I think that comes from just my appreciation of how he plays the game because, I obviously play a lot different now, I think, than I did in high school. But how I play the game in high school and still how I see the game, through my eyes is a lot, I think, how he sees the game. So I was always appreciative of that because I was like, I think, like, kind of seeing somebody that I know plays a lot like how I see the game, was interesting, and it allows us to bounce a lot of ideas off of each other and just things that we see. And it was the same thing, once I saw him, do what he's done in these games. I knew both them were for real, for sure.
What do you got for him, Bobby?
Morty. I thought that picture of you maybe when you're in the locker room, I thought that was maybe when you first saw that the Dolphins kicked the winning field goal. Jets.
I knew you were going to get it.
Keep your Steelers out of the play.
Yeah.
I think that's the moment he saw the field goal. Yeah, that's
fine. Hey, well, I won't say anything, but I know you're nervous.
I know
you're nervous, so yeah.
Wait, so this wasn't actually him being tired? That was his lamenting the football game?
Just upset about
his
Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, and we need Chase Claypool over here in Chicago. You traded him over to us. So if he doesn't start doing something next year, I'm gonna have a bone to pick with you.
No, I mean, in all seriousness, I've hit it off with Morty really well in my time doing the radio, just because me and Ethan, we're big sports fans through and through. He's, Pittsburgh guy. I'm a predominantly Chicago guy, except for my Cowboys. Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I have some fodder for you. I got a couple.
Slightly fair weather.
And if he's gonna talk crap to you, here's Bobby. Making Chris Kramer look like Zach Edey here right next to him. It's so great that they brought a fan on the court. No, I'm kidding, Bobby.
Laugh it up. I played like 2 minutes that game, so
we
I'm in the box.
We got some dirt on Bobby if he gives you too much crap. But go ahead, Bob. I kid.
Got abused by Evan Turner twice, but we won't talk about that. Anyways, so my question for Morty, what's it been like for you? You and Jaden coming as freshmen. And it's obviously like information overload. You're trying to learn everything from an offensive, defensive standpoint, learn from Coach Paint, but following guys like E. Hunt and Sash, who are Sasha Stomanovich, Greg's boy, Sasha, who were upperclassmen in the system. What's that been like for you transitioning this year to being the vet, being a guy who's played and being a captain and having, maybe Braden and Fletch kind of looking up to you and trying to get advice?
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I feel like it happened so fast, even though I'm a junior now. Like last year, I was like still super young, like young guy on the team. Like we had so many older guys, and then all of a sudden we came back in the summer and they were all gone. I was like, oh crap! Like now I'm an older guy. So it's definitely weird, but it's cool. I owe a lot to those older guys. Especially Hunt and Sash. I think I can confidently say if Eric wasn't around, even though the coaches have obviously played a big part in it too. If Eric wasn't around, I don't know what kind of defender I am, honestly. I think he was a guy that I sort of looked to when I wasn't playing and just saw like how amazing he was at that end of the floor. And I always just enjoyed how much success he had there and how much joy he had on that end of the floor. So I definitely tried to add that last year and obviously this year. And then Sasha, obviously just, throwing
those lob passes to Zach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely the post feeds and the lobs. Hopefully I can maybe shoot it a little bit more like him at some point during the year, make a couple more shots. But no, both those guys were great for me. I don't think I am who I am right now without them. And just now just being a leader. I think the biggest thing is just encouraging the young guys, especially when you have really talented young guys. I there's not a ton of advice I can give them because they're out there doing things that I'm not capable of. So a lot of times I just tell them just keep going, keep being aggressive. Like even when you're not having a great game, like just your aggression opens up a lot of things for other guys. And it's been easy to deal with, all the young guys coming in, just the whole team, because we have such a great group of guys that really understand the game, and are, just want to get better and are willing to listen and take criticism and all that kind of stuff. So it's been really great, and like I told them, it's been great so far. I think there'll still be ups and downs for us to weather, but it's definitely been fun so far. And the other older guys, like Mason and Brandon and Zach and even Dave, have been awesome as well. It's not just me. They bring a lot of great stuff to the table with leadership and that I can't bring. So just they've been unbelievable and made my job really, really easy.
What's it like to play under Matt Painter? To me, just watching the way he's worked and being up close to it here the last 5 years and seeing how he deals with you guys as a team and then deals with players individually, for my money, I think he's one of the best coaches, if not the best coach in the country. And
Yep.
I'd say that even if I wasn't rooting for you guys.
Right.
What is it like to play under him, the honesty he gives you, and you mentioned how, you were, the top player in high school, and then you come here and now, I call you the glue guy. You're certainly one of them. I think Mason Gillis falls in that category as well. What is it like for you to have conversations with him about, okay, like, because you're being honest right now. You're saying Fletcher and Braden can do things I can't do. I think that shows a lot of humility. You bring a lot of things to the table maybe other players can't do.
Mm-hmm.
But what's it like for you to play with Matt Painter and he gives you that kind of honesty to get you to become the best player you can be in this program?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head with honesty. I think that's something that's really taken for granted nowadays, especially in the sports world. And I think that alone is a thing, one of the best of what he does in the whole country. He just loves to win. But the honesty thing, you have to learn, I think, to love it and accept it. I mean, sometimes you're going to hear stuff that you don't want to hear. Not because it's not true, just because, everybody, like Paint says, everybody has some shit to them. Everybody has some ego to them, no matter if you're the best person in the world. So you don't always want to hear like you can't do this or you shouldn't do this, or even if you are capable of doing a certain thing, like maybe it's not best for the team for you to be doing it. So that definitely something that I've learned from those older guys, when I was young, and something I've been able to apply. But he's unbelievable, man. He just, like I said, the honesty, he's a real dude, and Bobby can attest to this, just being on the road with him, like who he is in a film session, who he is at dinner night before the game, who he is in the locker room right before the game, who he is coaching the game, like who he is after the game. Like it's all the same person, it's not like 5 different people folded. Like it's the same person every single time, and he's authentic and he cares about his players and the people that he has with them, and that's what makes him the best. And then you add on top of it, he's unbelievable with the X's and O's on offense. Not that I didn't this is going to come off as sort of bad, but not that I didn't believe he could, draw up a lot of stuff. But like my freshman year when Shrews was here, like he drew up everything offensively. So when he left and last year Paint started drawing everything, I was like, whoa. Because I'd never really seen him draw stuff up before. And just how his like wealth of plays that he has for every single game that he can just like pull off the top of his head and draw up, in like a high pressure situation is just sort of really unbelievable. And you got to give him credit on the defensive end as well. He's always been a great, defensive coach. And I think he's one of the few guys that I think is really good on both sides of the ball, which is impressive. And, obviously the last thing that kind of completes it is, he's always been really great recruiting. I think that goes back to the honesty and ties into that. And they've done a really good job of kind of getting ahead, more or less, getting guys committed early and they're able to keep working ahead in these classes. And, he's set up an exciting, future for this program. And I'm lucky that I've been able to be a part of it.
Absolutely. We definitely are happy that you're a part of it. Anybody in the chat or watching live, we got a lot of live viewers tuned in, and we appreciate everybody tuning in. We don't want to take up too much of Ethan's time, but if you have any questions, go ahead and fire them off in the chat, and I'm going to let Kraig and Bobby rip off a couple more. We want Ethan to get to bed because we know he's got to hit them books here soon. It's getting
back
off
to
of
class
Christmas.
this week, baby.
Back to class. So go ahead, Kraig.
Yeah, I guess, Ethan, that you guys experienced your first loss at the beginning of this week. And I know you beat yourself up on that last defensive play. Mm-hmm. But when Greg called you a glue guy, I prefer to call you a lockdown defensive player and a glue guy because I watch you out there, and there's times that, a lot of people maybe don't see what happened, where you just blow up an action, you completely disrupt something that they're trying to run on the offensive end that maybe doesn't show up necessarily in the stat sheet, but you can see like he stopped that. It didn't go anywhere from there. And we're big in the last couple of games and in the Rutgers game up to that point, leading up to that defensively and all year long. But as you look at this year, that's the first loss, kind of lose it on that last shot, heartbreaking fashion, come right back and win 2 games. What did you learn about your team and your teammates around you going through that process?
Well, first off, thank you. I appreciate that. That kind of scouting stuff, I think, falls a lot on the coaches. So they give me a great blueprint to kind of make that stuff happen. But yeah, we learned a lot. I think we learned a lot about our group. We'll continue to learn, as the year goes on. But, I think, sometimes you lose a game and you go back and watch the film and, sometimes it's just, they play better. Maybe they made a couple shots, you thought you executed the game plan and kind of, sometimes it's just, you get beat by a better team or a better team has a game and better game and stuff like that. And I think that was definitely part of it against Rutgers, but also I think they played harder than us. And I know Coach Payne hit on it, and we're just kind of more physical and an experienced team that kind of flexed their muscle a little bit. So I think for us to respond after a game like that was super impressive, because like I said, sometimes it's just, you did everything you could and you just kind of go to the next game and figure it out. But responding to a game when you had a little bit of a lack of effort, I think was really impressive. And especially you win a game that's super close and could have gone either way. You don't take for granted, winning close games. And then again, being able to do it again on Sunday and in a game that, I think us guys that were around shooters always get fired up for and have that extra, just that little bit of extra attention to detail because, he's going to have it in that environment, I think was really impressive. But yeah, it was impressive, especially how the freshmen responded. And, even Zach, he hasn't had a bad game all year, but he was definitely pretty unbelievable, on Sunday. And the rest of the guys too, we had a lot of guys step up, Dave was awesome at Ohio State. I think Mason's been, like I said, awesome the whole year. He had some big plays last couple games. Caleb, you could just go down the list of guys that responded in their own way. And, hopefully we can, continue to carry that and sort of play with that chip on your shoulder of not letting anybody play harder than you.
Yeah. definitely enjoy watching the way you guys play. You talk about a chip on your shoulder. You guys are first to the floor. Even Zach Edey at one point was first to the
Right.
floor in the game. Biggest dude on the court, getting down on, getting dirty like that. That's what it's all about.
Right.
And then to see the Purdue fans show up at the Palestra like that was a cool scene. Adam Scheller in the chat, kind of joking about that.
Were you happy they changed that to a road game? Did it feel like a road game to
Oh
you?
my God. Yeah. I mean, if that's a neutral site game, then man, I don't know what a road game is, because that was a pretty awesome. Bobby can attest to it. Just
yeah, it was pretty awesome.
It was awesome, and I don't even have as much, experience. Payne kind of said it before the game. This is just like a regional or like semi-state game. I was not from Indiana, so I didn't really get that. So I was like, if this is what a high school playoff game was like, it's like, well,
oh man, it's different in Indiana. I'll tell you that.
But yeah, just the crowd and how they were sort of right on top of you. A little bit similar to Mackey in that way. But yeah, they had a great crowd, and it was I'm glad we got that experience.
Well, you guys were certainly getting under Schrurz's skin, because he took a tech in that game. I know he was directed at the refs, but I think just the way you guys kind of took him apart in the second half, certainly in that little stretch when Braden Smith just kept throwing alley-oops to Edey, that was one of the more impressive moments I've seen all year, just because it was like, okay, try and stop this.
Yeah.
Bobby, what else you got for him? And then we got a couple of questions in the chat, and then we'll cut him loose.
All right. Ethan, what's it been like for you as far as, and you've kind of talked about this a little bit, and Eric really was a good, guy to look at as far as like scored a zillion points in high school, one of the top all-time leading scorers as a high school player. But then once he gets to Purdue, finds his way transitioning to, as far as trying to get the most minutes on the court, as being an all Big Ten level defender.
Right.
And I'm sure Eric would have liked, more opportunities offensively and more shot attempts and all that sort of stuff, just like any player would. What's that been like for you, going from winning Penn State or Pennsylvania Player of the Year? Did you win Gatorade Player of the Year in Pennsylvania? And do they have a Mr. Basketball?
It was just the Gatorade.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't really have a
Indiana Mr. Basketball.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, you win Gatorade Player of the Year in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Obviously, scoring lots of points in high school. You get to Purdue. What's that transition been like for you, where now you're the guy who, I think, from what I see from you, is you really embrace the challenge of like, okay, I'm the stopper on this team. I'm guarding Bryce Sensabaugh. I'm guarding Jalen Pickett. I'm checking these dudes, and I'm embracing that. I might not take a shot. Like, did you take a shot last game? I don't think you did, right?
No.
Yeah.
I probably could have taken a couple, and
you could have.
Didn't, but
yeah. So you transition to being like, okay, I'm going to be defensive stopper, and I know you want to score more and all that stuff, and obviously you sacrifice for the team. But to be that guy who says, I'm going to try to be an all Big Ten level defender, what's that been like for you as you transition to that role?
Yeah. It's hard, man. If I'm being completely honest,
in the locker room, a test. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's hard. If I'm being completely honest, it's something that I sort of still struggle with at times, now. I think mentally it's the biggest thing. Cause like you hit it on, you hit on it, everybody knows this. You always want more from yourself, I think. No matter who you are, no matter what you do,
right.
And I kind of have that good and bad trait of like, I could play the best game of my life, but if there was 2 or 3 things that went wrong, like that's what I'm thinking about after the game, so you always want more from yourself. And in high school, I wouldn't even say it was necessarily me just scoring the ball. It was me just playing with the ball so much that was probably the biggest adjustment for me coming to college. Like, how do I have success without feeling like having the ball in my hands 24/7, Yeah. But yeah, it's always an ongoing adjustment, because you want more from yourself offensively. But I think I've learned how to play through my defense more and just play through, I know I can always make guys better offensively just by making simple plays and passes. But yeah, just playing through my defense and, which
Well,
I
I
didn't play.
think people don't realize how hard you have to play defensively against some of those guys and how that can take away.
Yeah.
Like, and I know you're in great shape, and I'm sure you're trying to get in the best shape possible year in year out, but it's exhausting guarding the best player. You can't just hang out in the corner like
right.
So, I know you won't make excuses for yourself offensively, but like that, can certainly take away from anyone's offense.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely tough. I think Robbie Hummel, I just hearing him talk one time, he kind of hit it on the head. It was like, I'm not like a lot of these other guys that maybe super gifted athletically. So like Rob said, he just always had to work so hard on that end of the floor. And I feel like I'm, obviously I think I have some athleticism, but it's a lot. It's just so much. It's all about effort. And that's the biggest thing that I learned from Eric. He was like, as long as you're playing hard on that end, like a lot of the stuff will just take care of itself. And there's layers to it of knowing what's going on and stuff. When you play hard, you cover up a lot of mistakes. And I think that goes for just team defense as well. But yeah, it's definitely something that I've learned to embrace. And, hopefully, like I hit on earlier, I can continue to grow offensively, even if it's just making open shots, to keep opening things up for these other guys. I think that's sort of the last piece for me, because as we've seen, a couple teams have tried to not guard me as much, just to take away post entries and stuff. So if I can continue to keep people honest, I think that'll be, an exciting piece for us as well. So,
who's the toughest guy you've had to guard?
Oh boy. I mean,
because you got two real good ones the last 2 games.
Yeah, Sensabaugh is definitely up there, just as him as a pure scorer. We said I guarded him. He still put up 20 points, and it felt like every shot he took, he made
and
right in my face.
I still felt like you did a good job watching.
Yeah, it was like I was like, I'm right here, and I knew that going into the game, just because he was my height. So a lot of times when I get on smaller guys, I feel like I can alter a lot of shots, but him being 6'6", just so big, and he's so good at, he gets that shoulder into your chest and just gets that little bit of space, and then he just gets that little bit of lean back, and that's all the space he needs to get a shot up. So he's obviously up there. Pickett, obviously, just really unbelievable. Just because he makes you work so much, the way he moves with and without the ball, and you have to be really on point with being disciplined and not jumping and stuff, because he's great at drawing fouls. Trying to think, going back to last year,
Keegan Murray.
Keegan Murray was a super tough one, just because he would just get like 30 so quietly.
Yep.
And you just kind of fall asleep guarding him, and then he's like, oh, like he's at the rim, or oh, he's open for three. Like he was a tough one. I think Marcus Carr was another guy that's really great.
Did you guard Johnny Davis some?
Yeah, I was a part of that. Definitely a part of that.
He didn't want to bring it up, Bobby. He didn't want to bring it up.
Did you guard Johnny Davis?
Oh yeah, he was.
I think that was the other guys the first game.
Yeah, he's definitely up there as well. The guy that I go back to, and this is my freshman year where I barely played, but when I ended up on him, and actually played probably 10 or 15 minutes this game, but we played Michigan my freshman year at home, and this was right when Sasha got COVID, so he was out, and they came in with that team, and I was stuck on Wagner a couple times, and I was just like, holy crap.
Dude, that team
was insane. Like, Livers, awesome. The point guard, I forget his name.
Mike Smith.
Yes, he was so good. And then
the dude
who's the two guard that was there forever?
Eli.
Brooks.
How do you remember everybody, Bobby?
Dude, that team was. If Livers doesn't get hurt, I honestly think
that team was unbelievable. And when I was on Wagner, he was, a lot of times guys will pump up their numbers as far as like how much they weigh and how tall they are. but he was every bit of 6'10", 220, 230, and like really put together. And just the stuff that he was able to do out of ball screens and with the ball in transition at 6'10" was pretty impressive. So he might be the toughest guard. I'd like to see how I do against him now, but I still think I'd probably have a lot of trouble. So
to piggyback off that though, so that game, your freshman year, no fans in the stands.
Weird. Yeah.
What's it been like? What's it like now when you think back to that
man.
versus like packed house Mac? You like obviously way more adrenaline and stuff.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy because your freshman year, you sort of got used to it, just like, oh, nobody's here.
It's weird open gym.
Kind of gotta, you kind of got to bring your own juice on the bench and stuff. But it was cool because we sort of got a taste of it a little bit at the end of the year. If you guys remember the Big Ten tournament and then our first NCAA game being at Lucas Oil, that it was so big that you still had 25%. So we still probably had like 10, 11,000 people there. So we got a little bit of a taste of it there finally. But then obviously last year was just like, whoa, obviously, because we were, really highly ranked the whole year and just, it's unbelievable. It's
I feel
crazy
so bad for
in
you
that
guys
team.
like that first year because like that Livers and Wagner team comes in, like that would have been the biggest game of the season.
Oh my God. Yeah. That place would have been
crowd and
yes.
instead it was nothing.
Well, I've heard some guys that had to guard Michael Jordan back in the day. They used to phrase it like, I held Michael to 46 points. So sometimes when you play the greats, they're going to get some on you. You
Exactly.
hold them as best you can. Craig and I certainly were wondering because you're a Pennsylvania guy. Are you Kobe, Jordan, or LeBron?
I'm LeBron through and through. As much as that disappoints people.
Him and Fletcher both.
Yep.
I mean, I got MJ.
Their whole generation. We were talking about this.
Here we go. Gosh.
I thought he might be a Kobe guy with those Philly roots.
See,
and family roots of Kobe.
I would say if I would. Geez, I don't
know.
No,
don't even. Say
I mean, I would say MJ's better than Kobe, obviously, but just from a preference, I liked Kobe more when I was younger. But yeah, I've always been a LeBron guy, so that's especially without having an NBA team. I just sort of gravitated towards him when I was young.
All right, Ethan.
So,
they're all so great, obviously.
Nobody's perfect, Ethan. All right,
yeah,
we're not going to judge you here tonight. A couple quick questions in the chat.
Yeah,
and then we'll let you go.
Okay.
Damon Anderson, since you live in Pennsylvania, did you have family at the place?
Yeah, my parents were able to drive out, which was nice. That's the only thing that stunk. Obviously, super cool that we get to play there. But normally, like when we play at Penn State, that's only a couple hours from home. So last year, I remember I probably had 50 tickets just for all kinds of people. But
you had the Sasha allotment for senior day.
Yes, exactly.
78 people.
Right. But yeah, so it was cool that they were still able to be there, and they're my parents. This is sort of a side note, but just they're unbelievable and, come to every game that they can. And, obviously, one in any other way, it's awesome that they're able to come to a lot of the games.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of meeting them a few times. Definitely good people. So a couple more quick ones. John Hostetler, have you gone to any Indiana high school basketball games?
And I need to. I've always talked about it. Just always sort of coincides with our stuff, but my goal is to this year get to like a big playoff game or something like that, because they have them, I mean, obviously all around. So I
wonder if Lafayette Jeff, I wonder if they're hosting any.
I was gonna say that's either them or maybe like McCutcheon. Or
I promise you you'll love it. I mean, when I went to see Romeo Langford in his final game, he lost in semi-state. David Bell hit the game-winning shot.
Oh yeah,
and I have a great shot of it.
That's awesome.
And the place just went bananas. But the funniest part was that was the 4A game. The 1A game before them with Morristown versus Bar Reeve. It would blow your mind the loyalty of these fan bases and the knowledge of the game.
Yeah.
The way they're calling out the plays, and depending on what the defense is, they're telling them throw it to the corner and stuff. You'll have a great appreciation for what it's all about here and why they can call it Hoosier hysteria.
Rags, are you old enough that you remember before we went to class basketball?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I followed Maribel down when it was
the craziest games were when there was a really good 2 or 3A team taking on a 5A. Those were the craziest sectional games to me when we weren't class, right, Bobby?
Yeah, we moved to class when I was 12, so I do have some memories.
1999 or 2000 when they switched.
Well, I'm older than both.
Now
of you.
they class it, Ethan, where 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, depending on how big the school is. But before, that's why the movie Hoosiers, you had
that's
this
what I was just gonna say. The movie Hoosiers,
right? This very small school goes all the way to the top and beats a top dog team.
Right.
So they don't have that anymore, and I think a lot of people wish they'd go back to that.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Steve Dotson, were you recruited by any Pennsylvania schools? What made you pick Purdue over Pennsylvania? Any of them, if they did?
Yeah, Pitt and Penn State, and I would even throw West Virginia in there. We're pretty involved. It's a shame, because I've said, it's not a shame because I ended up here and this is the best decision I ever made. But I'm a very home oriented person, sort of a homebody. So, it was definitely always on my mind, maybe wanting to stay home, but Pitt was just sort of in a weird transition. At that point, Capel had just gotten the job, and I really enjoyed him, but he just really didn't have enough time to recruit me. And then Chambers at Penn State, who I really liked as well, was just, I think it just had that big season, but then he was gone soon after that too. So obviously, great that I ended up here, and Paint was the main reason. I mean, it comes down to a lot of stuff, but my dad always said you have to go based on the head coach, not the assistants, because that's the guy who will be there. And I knew Paint would never leave. He's in a great spot, a lot of job security, and just what he's been able to do year in and year out. And he was when they came in my in-home visit, it was they killed it, completely sealed the deal, and just with their honesty, he never blows smoke on my butt, and just always, told me how it was. And I think that was what I was looking for.
Absolutely. And we really appreciate your time. Jesse J says, one quick question. Not sure how much post play has changed in high school, but Coach Painter already has a huge playbook. How much of a change has it been playing through the post so much the last 2 years? I know Coach Painter calls that a lost art in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely weird at first. When I first showed up, I was kind of like, never done this before. Don't know how this really fits into what I'm doing, but obviously, like I said, able to learn from guys like Sasha, who's really great at it, and just learning the terminology and the sets in general, is super important. But then, kind of an art too. And I'm still learning. There's a lot of things I can still do better feeding the post as far as. You got to keep guys honest, because teams now, especially with our emphasis throwing it to Zach, will really. Rutgers did a great job of it. Some of us like to jump pass when we throw it in the post, so they're automatically jump when they see us looking in the post, and they got a couple of steals. And then obviously some teams have backed off me and stuff to dare me to shoot. So just playing off of ball fakes, shot fakes, using your dribble, and keeping them honest. I think is all super important to playing in the post, or throwing the ball inside. So can always be.
Well, we might have lost
as it used to.
All right. So one final one. Just want to respect our viewers.
No
again,
worries.
Ethan,
you guys are good.
I appreciate it, Ethan.
Yeah.
I told you 20 minutes, and we've now gone 40
You're
minutes.
fine.
So
hey,
the next time you see me,
it's my
you can
fault.
smack me.
As Bobby knows, and you guys know, I've become too long-winded in my answers.
No, it's all of us. Bob,
That's
last year,
Coach Painter rubbing off on you.
I was gonna say you're just emulating your coach.
Yeah, absolutely. When we had
trying
Penn,
to type a quote in the post-game press conference, just as we run the circle pattern, and I'm like, I don't even know where we were when I started typing the quote.
No, you're 100%. It's a Painter thing too, because we had him on for our first show of the year this year doing Purdue stuff, and I wanted to keep it very tight with him because I didn't want to burn the bridge. because we want him to be able to come on again maybe next year. And I was like, yeah, 15 minutes. Promise we won't keep up too much of your time. He's like, yeah, because I got something at 11:30 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes on to answer questions for like 8 minutes. I'm like, it was impossible.
Yes. We all asked like one question.
Yeah. And he's a
hilarious.
terrifying
Like,
person.
I'll get ready for my post-game interview with him for the radio, and I'll have like 5 questions. I'm like, all right, I'll bang these out. I'll ask the first one, and he'll touch on like all 5.
Yeah, that too.
Like, so well, I'm racing, like, what else should I ask him about?
And I asked my first question in the pressers. I've been doing, being credentialed the last 3 years, and I just kind of kept quiet because I didn't want to embarrass Sasha, is the honest answer. But the second reason was, just wanted to be respectful to everybody else. This year, I finally stepped up to the mic, wanted to ask a question, and I about shit my pants trying to ask my first question. I said, he looks at you. He's got like these Velociraptor eyes. It's terrifying.
Like
and when
he's staring into your soul.
Yes, this is it. This is the Velociraptor look. And he's a nice guy. He's just terrifying.
So why don't you ask? Yeah, Bob can attest this. Ask him what it feels like when you get that stare after you just did something that you completely should not have done. How about like after just a stupid turnover and you have to go into the timeout and he's just giving you those eyes? Yeah,
it's all never worse than making a mistake and then the horn sounds for like a timeout and you're like, I'm not getting murdered in this timeout.
He is the most fun coach for me to watch after every play, good or bad, to see what his reaction.
He's got some good authentic reactions.
Yes, for sure. Final question from the chat. Okay. It's a little bit of a deep one, but where is it? Let me see. John says, big fan ever since you were committed, but were you ever discouraged as a freshman year, catching mono early set you back a little bit. And then later in the year, you lost your grandfather and played through that. How hard was it for you your freshman year to try to, fill yourself into this program with some different obstacles to overcome?
Yeah, no, this is a great final question. And I'll be long-winded, I'm sure. So, but no, that's honestly a great question. It was super hard. Obviously you come in with a lot of expectations, as any freshman would, of, oh, this is how it's going to go. And I'm going to be great and everything's great. And I was good in high school, so everything will just work out. And then real life hits and you're like, oh shit, these guys are all really good, and you actually have to like work hard every day and stuff. So that was already hard, and COVID made it weird. And then I got sick right before the season, and I was just like, oh my God, So I come back obviously to start the season and actually played just because we were down so many guys. There was no reason I should have been playing at all if we were healthy. But so I was able to get a little bit of a taste of it, but that was just a tough year, and everybody's freshman year is always the hardest, and just until you go through it, it's kind of hard to describe. But losing my grandpa at the end of that year was tough, especially because he was always, he's my dad's dad, so just how into my career and how into basketball he was. He coached my dad in high school. He was a great athlete, played basketball, was a great pitcher, was a great track athlete. He was just an unbelievable athlete and a great person that always supported me. And so that was super hard to deal with, especially right at the end of the year. And there's just a lot of, like you guys, there's a lot of freshman things you have to deal with. And, selfishly, sometimes it's hard, when you come in as a freshman and you see your other classmates sort of come in and like have a lot of success right away. Like I walk in and I'm like, geez, I can't even get on the floor. And, Jaden and Zach are out there, like killing people as a freshman, like, why can't I do that? But that all kind of ties into, I think, what we hit on tonight as far as, finding your way and finding your role. And even if it's something that, I think if you asked everybody like, oh, like, do you want to be a great defensive player? Like, if you have a choice between that and, scoring 20 points a game, well, like, no, everybody's going to pick scoring 20 points a game because that's fun, but sometimes you don't get a choice. And I think that's part of growing up, and that's part of life. kind of adapting. And I've said it a lot this year. It's sort of either like adapt or die. So obviously I'm not actually going to die, but like, it's not a little too serious for that. But like, you either adapt and find a way to get on the floor or you're probably done. So, and I think everybody at some point in their career, whether it's in college or in the NBA or pros, like you have to change who you are because you're not good enough anymore unless you're LeBron James or Michael Jordan. Like you were a 20-point scorer in college. Like, what are you going to do for me now in the NBA? You're playing 10, 15, 20 minutes. Like, how do you get on the floor? And it's the same cycle of figuring out where you fit best. And, you always want to continue to work on your weaknesses, but you have to figure out ways to play to your strengths. So, obviously that was long-winded, and I just hit on 10 different things, but that, that's sort of, that freshman year was super tough, but I don't know if I am where I am now, without it. So.
Well, you certainly are rounding into a hell of a player, and I know Purdue feels lucky to have you. I know the coaches feel lucky to have you, and the fans appreciate the hard work you put in. They put the defense lives here sign at Mackey Arena. They appreciate the little things like getting on the floor and locking a dude up, getting them to the end of a shot clock, taking a bad shot. It's not just about the guys that are doing the highlight dunks or the game-winning threes, which we know you're capable of as well.
And could use a couple highlight dunks from you.
Yeah. Hey, Sasha, got the one and they called it off. I'll never forgive that ref for that. But they keep leaving you open, Ethan. You keep taking them shots. The other night you were struggling shooting. They left you open, dared you to take it in a lot of ways, and you knocked it down. So, that's big on you. And, keep that swagger to 1,000. This is the Ethan we all want to see every game. Keep that swagger up, my friend.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
One more request, because we've kind of transitioned. We call this show Brags in the Stands in a lot of ways, but now that we're doing a lot of Boiler stuff, we've been calling these shows Boilers in the Stands just to get people to understand really what we're trying to do here. And we don't have anybody to give us a promo. Like Sasha, gave us this.
I'm Sasha Stefanovic from Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Brags in the Stands.
So I need you to do a Boilers in the Stands for us, and then you can go to bed, and I'll never ask you to come on again for the rest of the year, and then I'll bug you after you guys do some damage in March. But I need this from you, Ethan. I hate to put you on the spot, but you got to. Sasha, I think it took like three takes, but I know you're going to nail it in one. So what I need from you is your name, however you want to phrase it, your name, Purdue men's basketball, whatever. And you're listening to Boilers in the Stands.
Okay.
You got it? All right. I'm going to give you the countdown. I'm going to mute everybody else. So you can't hear us talking. And then I'll give you the countdown here. Hold on. Let me get your name up too. Let me look like this professional. In 3, 2, 1.
This is Ethan Morton from Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Boom. I love it. See, one take, Sash. If Sash is watching, that took Ethan one take. You 3 takes. So, hey, Ethan, thank you for all your time. You asked me how long before you come on. I say 20 minutes. It turns into an hour.
I enjoyed it. So
honestly, appreciate it so much. We've had a ton of live viewers in here today, so I know how much they appreciate it as well. So best of luck on Friday. We'll all be there at Mackey, rooting you on. Bobby will be on the sideline, giving his weird faces to Painter and everything else. I'm kidding, Bobby.
Bobby was asking for highlight dunks. I want to see the highlights of Bobby's dunks in college.
Yes, this is the Bobby. We don't know what that is, but we always pull it up. Poor guy. So, all right, Ethan, go to bed. Enjoy your night,
guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on, and we'll catch you here soon.
Awesome. Great seeing you guys. Thank you.
All right. That is Ethan Morton, Purdue men's basketball guard, glue guy, lockdown defender. Swagger on 1,000 all day long for Ethan Morton. So before we get to our next segment of the show, I do want to give a shout out to my guys over at Fan Bags, one of the loyal sponsors to what we do here. And so that Ethan Morton interview was brought to you by Fan Bags Cornhole, Chicago's official supplier of professional cornhole boards and bags. Choose from any of their officially licensed designs or have my boy Brian design a custom set using anything from a selfie to your company's logo. Visit www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS to get 10% off. That's www.fanbagscornhole.com and use the promo code BRAGS for 10% off. Step up your game with Fanbags Cornhole. So, Bobby, you know, that was a really incredible interview from Ethan there. Really enjoyed his time. He's a very authentic person, and I think that's kind of what Matt Painter looks for in his recruits. You know, for you, Bobby, you know, when you see a guy like Ethan kind of come into his own, talk about the struggles he went through, you know, what have you seen from Ethan over this 3-year evolution period and what he brings to the table? You're muted. It's all good. Oh, wait, I muted you. I did this, Bobby. I'm blaming you.
When I did by this. The host. Come on.
I muted when he did the read, and then I forgot to unmute. So go ahead with your answer about Ethan Morton.
Yeah, no, it's been really cool to watch Ethan's maturation over his career, and you know the way he talked about his struggles as a freshman and how hard that was at first for him as being a guy who was highly touted to come in and not have maybe as much success as some of his peers in his class. And, you know, obviously dealing with all the stuff he went through with mono and just all those trials and tribulations that you have from transitioning from high school to college. It is a big jump. And, you know, our freshman guards this year have made it not look like it's that hard, but trust me, it's a really hard change from high school to college and just the speed of the game and everything that goes into it. So it's been really cool to see Ethan transition to the role he's in this year, which is a perfect puzzle piece to this team. And, you know, last year we talked about it ad nauseum about how the defense wasn't good enough game in, game out. And it needed to be better for us to, you know, go further. And it's probably true, you know, and as far as how the team ended in the season, you know, maybe a little bit better defense here or there, a couple plays could have been the difference as far as advancing. And I think he, as we all know, has been a huge part of the defense being substantially better this season, just because of how many more minutes he's playing and the role he's taken on as being that defensive stopper and just his attention to detail. He reminds me so much of a guy I played with, Robbie Hummel, as far as just his intangibles and his attention to detail on the defensive side of the floor. You know, he certainly is more of a perimeter lockdown wing defender compared to, say, Robbie, but Robbie was also a really, really good defender that I think was really underrated on that side of the ball and didn't get the credit he deserved for being always in the right spot, having a great understanding for the scouting report. I think that's what, you know, Kraig brought it up earlier about how Ethan does such a good job with his attention to detail in the scouting report and just knocking out opposing teams' actions before they can even get to him sometimes.
Right.
Or a guy doesn't get a wide open layup because Ethan was there to take it away, and that doesn't show up in the stat sheet. And so you don't get credit for that, unfortunately. But trust me, like coaches.
Right. You saw it on the game-winning attempt from Ohio State, right? He completely blew that final play up where he's fighting through the screen.
Sure.
And they couldn't get a clean look, and that ends the game, but it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, to your point.
Right. And that's why, you know, and he even admitted it, you know, here on the show, like, you know, he had a mental lapse on that final shot for Rutgers, and is a guy that takes so much pride in having attention detail and being a high intangibles guy. It killed him. Like, and I could see it, you know, after the game. I felt so bad for him because I just knew.
Well, you could still hear it in his answer today.
Yeah. I mean,
it's still eating him up.
It's still, yeah, he's still beating himself up over it. And that's just the type of guy he is. You know, he's going to for probably a while. But fortunately, you know, he was able to flush it when it came time to play in the game and took on 2 huge defensive assignments and get back after it. So, yeah, I appreciate seeing the player he's become. And, you know, the good news for him is he's been able to find a role on this team. And, you know, he wants to, just like everybody, have an expanded role offensively. And the way he can grow into that throughout the rest of his career is by finding a way on the floor, right? And he's found a way to be on the floor because of his defense. And he'll continue to work on his offensive game and get better as his career continues.
And Bobby, a spinoff of that Rutgers game, like in the post-game press conference, we heard Painter just kind of be effusive about Rutgers and how they play and their team, and the players talk with a lot of respect about them. You're around the team all the time. Is that like one of the I don't want to – I'm sure they respect all Big Ten teams, but it sure seems like there's this weird love affair between Purdue and Rutgers because they love how each other play the game or something.
Oh, I think we just – obviously we've struggled against them to win basketball games as of late.
Right.
And I think we have appreciation for how they, really just muck it up. They really – I think they kind of remind Coach of a lot of like those Gene Katie teams over the years that maybe weren't super duper skilled from an offensive standpoint, but, tried to play to certain guys' strengths offensively, but then really just relied on, hey, we're going to be tough as heck. We're going to lock you down defensively. We're going to force you to turn it over. We're going to be opportunistic, going the other way in transition. And offensively, we're going to hope for the best and try to make enough plays to win basketball games that are likely going to be low scoring. But I think he just really digs their like toughness and, that aspect of them.
Yeah, that quote from him about like picking them up if we were ever going to war was
right. Yeah, they just got dudes, man. They always, Caleb McConnell. I mean, that dude, he can guard anybody in the country.
They're just so frustrating because they did this last year though too. They're a good team. They've been a good team for 3 years, but they just
and then they lose.
Always
who they lose to the other day?
Maryland.
Yeah,
or Maryland, right?
Well, they lost to Ohio State lost at Maryland, and Iowa beat Rutgers at Rutgers.
Okay, yeah, my head's spinning on the teams that are slipping on. The Iowa is the most Jekyll and Hyde team I think I've ever seen in my life. But it's like just so frustrating when I know Rutgers is a good team. I got a lot of respect for the way they're like Purdue in a lot of ways, like just how their program is starting to climb and just the pieces, the way they fit, the way they run their offense, the way they play hard on defense. I think they're like Purdue light or whatever. I don't even want to say that because I think that's disrespectful. They're a very good team who could be a threat if they would just be consistent in those middle of the week games. They play the big one against Purdue, but then you got to win those little ones where, you get in a trap game, so to speak.
Well, they're a little bit offensively challenged. So, when that aspect of the floor doesn't necessarily show up every night, like we saw that they lost a game to Seton Hall, I believe it was earlier in the year, and it was insanely low scoring, and they lost.
Neither of them got above 50.
Right. So, I mean, that's a game where clearly their defense showed up, but their offense was non-existent. So, when you're that poor on one end of the floor, and, Purdue was kind of this way a little bit last year at times defensively, if your other side of the floor doesn't show up, you can leave yourself susceptible to getting beat. And, which I think the Iowa game, what was weird about it was it did feel like they had more defensive breakdowns and gave up some more points than they normally do. So that might have been.
It's high-powered offensively and always is.
Yes. Yeah. Iowa, with Chris Murray, they got some dudes.
I'd have to go back and look at Ken Palm, but I'm guessing whatever Rutgers is, Ken Palm defensively, Iowa's close to offensively and vice versa.
Right. Yeah, and in the chat, John Hochstetler says, road teams winning tonight. Michigan State beat Wisconsin as Ethan was coming on just at the start of our interview. So down goes Wisconsin, who was leading the Big Ten for a minute, and Illini are up at the half by 11 at Nebraska, who the Boilers take on. We were trying to have a little organization to the final segment of our show. We'll try to be quick. We try being the operative word with a bunch of guys that love to talk Boilermakers basketball. I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but we've already touched on a couple things here, the Rutgers game, how they were, but anything else to you, Bobby, sitting there covering this team, being right there next to Matt Painter while you're calling the game with the great Rob Blackman, anything that stood out to you over these 3 games that maybe isn't the obvious things that we've already seen or discussed here over the last week?
Not the obvious things. Well, I mean, this is kind of this is more of an obvious one, but it was nice that we finally started making some jump shots.
Yeah.
In the second half of Ohio State, and then, really more the second half of the Penn State game too. I think we were just 3 for 10 from 3 in the first half of the Penn State game. So that, isn't a great percentage. But to
how
shoot
much
over,
do players feed off of each other on that? Because like we hear like shooters got to shoot, you got to shoot through it, but it sure seemed like in that moment in the Ohio State game, I forget who hit the first one, but like we start out like 0 for 6, right? Jenkins hit
David
the
hit a
first
huge
right?
one, yeah.
But then like it just seemed like nobody could hit one, and then boom, 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 4 or 5 different guys started hitting them. Like how much as a player do you start feeding off of seeing other guys knock them down too?
I think it certainly appears that it happens more than you think. I think it's just it's a confidence thing. I think it empowers these other guys to shoot the ball with confidence. I mean, when you don't shoot the basketball with confidence, and I think Ethan, would admit to this, that he's probably had some ups and downs with, struggling with his confidence at times if there's some balls that don't go in. And I feel like as a team, we've had a lot of threes rattling and out this year for whatever reason. And if we miss a couple shots in a row, you start to, worry. I think it'd be like, man, I don't want to take the next one and miss it when our teams miss 4 in a row. Like, so I think it can kind of snowball in a positive way or a negative way, where if we're making them, everyone's thirsty to get that next opportunity because they want to cash in. And so, yeah, it's been interesting that way, because it does feel like in the games where we've made some threes, like we make a bunch then and we shoot above 40%. Whereas if we're missing a bunch, then if we miss something, we miss a bunch and we shoot a really low percentage. It doesn't feel like we've had as many games where we're kind of somewhere in that happy, like 35% range or whatever. But it's kind of been odd how it's worked that way. So it's been really nice to see some guys make some shots that grow confidence throughout the rest of the guys. Because, I mean, the quality of shot we're getting, I think that what's amazed me, and I don't know if it should amaze me as much considering we have Zach Edey, who's just an absolute beast. But what amazes me is I feel like when we don't turn the basketball over, which we've been doing a better job this year than, say, last year. I feel like game in, game out, but we certainly can have some moments where we get sloppy with the basketball. When we don't turn it over, I feel like we get literally an open shot every possession. Like, I feel like defenses, if they, go crazy on Zach, we're shooting horse shots, and some games we've unfortunately missed a lot of those. Or I feel like if they don't guard Zach, if they don't double Zach immediately, then he can just scoring at will down low or getting fouled. And then we're such a good offensive rebounding team. Even when we do miss, a lot of times we're getting putbacks. So, to me, it's been incredible just how effective we are as an overall offense with just the plays we run, with Zach's ability, with Braden's ability to, and even Fletcher to some degree, to play make in the half court through our sets or through ball screen action. And so I've just been really impressed with our overall offense and the quality of shot that we get game in, game out.
Yeah. So yeah, after looking back, let's look forward here. Illinois up on Nebraska at halftime. Nebraska with 23 points at the half, down 11, 34-23. What are you watching for? Purdue played Nebraska in a really tight one. Could have easily went the other way. Did it go to overtime? I'm like blacking out after the Bears got the number 1 pick. I can't remember anything that happened before that.
I haven't seen your reaction, but I heard you had a pretty fantastic reaction.
I'll share it to you. It's on Facebook. It's on the CHGO TikTok account. Put a great video up where I scream like a little girl. It's pretty classic. I haven't seen it either. It's ridiculous. I was being ridiculous that day, but I have no regrets. It was a great moment. I don't even know.
And you still got home and we did a post-game show after that.
Yeah, it was a long day on Sunday. 10 a.m. doing pregame show in Chicago, watch the whole game, do a post-game show, completely lose my mind, and then come home and watch the Penn State game, and then we did a post-game show. So
I actually watched your guys' post-game show today. I was at work, and when you're doing accounting all day long. When you're doing accounting all day long, you need content.
You watched the post-game show while you were at work?
Yeah, when I was doing accounting, yeah.
I like it.
Hey, when you're doing mindless numbers, you can have any content.
Well, I'll tell you what, Aiden Kunst and Joe Jackson have been a great addition to what we're trying to do here. I mean, they do their things on their own right with the Feed the Post podcast, but they bring a lot to the table when it comes to the X's and O's and the analytical perspective, So I appreciate you tuning in. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you. So, we've seen Nebraska. They took us right to the wire, go to overtime. Purdue pulls it out. What are you looking for here Friday night when the Boilers return to Mackey and the paint crew and the student section and the fans return to Mackey as well?
Sure, I'm looking for our guys to come out with a sense of urgency against these guys. Just with the way our last home game unfortunately ended with losing to Rutgers, and then with the way Nebraska gave us a major ball game at their place, taking us to overtime in a game that was really hard fought. Those guys played really hard that day. Manuel Bandamel, I believe is his name, plays the wing position for Nebraska, one of their transfers they brought in. And he was ball hawking Braden Smith like 94 feet that entire game. I was really impressed with his defensive effort and just how hard their team played as a whole. So I think what I'm looking for from us is just to really come out, sense of urgency from the jump, realize that this team, gave us a really tough battle last time, and that we're going to have to, if we want to make up for our previous home loss, we're going to have to come out and, really take it to them to start the game and let them know, like, this is our house. We know what you guys did last time to us in Nebraska, but it ain't happening tonight. And we're going to, make up for our loss last game to Rutgers here in our house. And because if you want to win a Big Ten championship, and you might be able to slip up once, maybe twice at home, but, you do that too often that you're not going to be able to get the crown. And we've slipped up once already now. And we fortunately were able to get that back a little bit this past week with the 2 road wins. But if we want to get another Big Ten championship, we can't be slipping up at home again, hopefully. So I think I'd like to see us just come in and come out strong right from the jump.
Kraig, any observations you have going into this game?
Yeah, I would say, that Nebraska team has length. They have length at their wings. To me, there's been some years where we've really struggled with pressure. To me, it's not as much about the pressure this year as teams we play that are super long at the guard and wing spot. And Nebraska is that way, and I think that's why we struggled a little bit with them when we played them the first time. Just trying to make good, crisp passes that were on point in that game. So see how they handle that when they play them again. I don't think they'll take them lightly the second time around. Man, it sure seems like if you give Braden Smith a half, he figures the team out. I'd really like to know what happens at halftime. I know in football, they show video, in NFL games, right? I'd really like to know if Braden Smith gets to see any video clips and that helps him figure out what to do, or if it's just coaches saying, this is what's happening, you do this, or him just realize it and learn in real time. But it sure seems like at some point, usually after the first half, that he just figures something out, like against Gonzaga, against West Virginia, I think it was, or Marquette, one of those 2 teams. You could just tell he figured it out and then he went. So I'm betting with a little bit of time to study that Nebraska defense, he'll have it figured out and go. I'm going to look ahead just a minute further because Michigan State is a different team with Malik Hall back. I don't think I credited them enough in terms of how much better they were with Hall in some of my earlier Big Ten rankings. But I think they're a different team, and that's going to be a tough game at Michigan State on Monday. I think I'm going to go to watch that live, Bragg, so I'm sorry. I'm probably going to have to bail on the post-game show on that one.
Oh, no, you don't. We're making you come on. You'll be live.
I'll come on as soon as I can.
Live from the Breslin Center.
One of my really good friends, Ben Cams, is a grad student up there in the music department, and he wants me to come up and get tickets and go to the game with him. And I think I'm going to take advantage of that shot and go watch that game. But I think that's going to be an awful tough one now that Hall is back when we play them up there, especially. So, but I think looking forward in general, I think the Big Ten is going to be a dogfight all the way through. It's just the way it's going to be. I think we've got the ability when you look at having a guy like Zach in the middle, there's going to be some teams that maybe can knock off some other other schools in this conference, that Zach is just going to be the deciding factor for us, and long term it'll win out for us.
I'm getting an update from John Hostetler in the chat. He said Jawan Gary of Nebraska hurt his shoulder in the first half and started the second half on the bench with his shoulder wrapped. So we'll have to keep an eye on those updates as the week goes through. Obviously, probably won't know until tip off, basically, his availability for Friday night, but certainly something to monitor. Obviously, one of the bigger stories of the week, or like I said, I can't remember my days anymore, but Chris Beard being fired at Texas, big news, obviously, Purdue beat Texas last year in the tournament. Then all of a sudden, anytime a job opens up, the first name that's brought up is Matt Painter. And my question to you, Bobby, and I'll let Kraig, give his thoughts on this as well, but do you ever see a scenario where Matt Painter leaves West Lafayette? You're already shaking your head. No, he's saying absolutely not. I mean, no scenario whatsoever that Matt Painter ever leaves West Lafayette.
Not a scenario I envision, that's for sure. He's super happy and content in West Lafayette as far as what I can see, day in, day out. He's got a lake house here now. I think he's just, he's a Cubs season ticket holder now. He didn't want to live in Austin, Texas, way too far away from Chicago. So, I don't see Paint leaving Purdue for any sort of other college opportunity. Maybe if the NBA came calling and that wet his whistle down the road or something, maybe. But I think Paint obviously is very happy with where things have gone at Purdue to this point and where things are heading in the future. I think he's in the prime of his career. I think he's recruiting at the best level he's ever recruited.
Right.
And so he's got the number one team in the country year in, year out now. So I'm not sure why you'd leave that. Honestly.
Right. I feel like those programs had their chances, or Kentucky or Duke or North Carolina or what. Like, to me, those schools would have been stupid to not beg him to come to their school. But now that he's turned this into a well-oiled machine of recruiting and system, and 2 straight years of number one in the country, you got Miles Colvin coming in, you got Tamika Catching's son coming in, you got
No.
Or not son.
Nephew.
I apologize. But still a very talented player, nonetheless. And you've got guys that redshirt that are top 50 ranked type players. And, he's turned this into a well-oiled machine. So I think any team, if that was ever a possibility, prior to these, he's been the head coach for 18 years. I think that train has left the station and he's staying in West Lafayette. Kraig, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's a situation where he leaves either. And again, you never say never, because you don't know. I cannot imagine Matt Painter on the sideline of an NBA game screaming "move" at the top of his lungs and not working out well for NBA guys. So I don't see him as an NBA fit necessarily. But who knows? He's shown he's been able to adapt over the years, and we've seen at different times that, guys that you think maybe wouldn't have been drawn by that, Beeline at the end of his career, that maybe just want to give it a shot one time. So maybe, at the very, very end, that type of thing. But no, I don't think there's any current situation where I could envision him leaving. I do think I would be shocked if Purdue wouldn't respond with some type of a pay bump. I think he's proven that he deserves it in the pantheon of where coaching salaries are, and in terms of who produces on a consistent basis. And if you get Texas's, or let's say Coach Cal goes to Texas and Kentucky calls, those type of schools calling, you got to reflect that the marketplace has changed on your coach and pony up a little bit more, just out of respect, I think. And I think we have an AD that's that type of guy right now and understands that. We saw that with Coach Braum multiple times when people started to overture him, until he got called back home to his alma mater. So I would not be shocked if Texas does call, or let's say Cal goes to Texas, which is a rumor, And, Kentucky calls. I would not be surprised if we don't see like a new contract or something like that pop out. But I don't think he leaves in any way, shape, or form for years and years to come.
Yeah. Copper Top, 1985, greatest year ever, because I was also born that year. I keep wondering if Calipari is going to leave Kentucky or get pushed out and go to the Texas job. So she kind of echoes that thought there as far as Calipari potentially going to Texas.
I wonder if Coach Cal wants to leave so he can prove that he can actually do it again somewhere else.
Yeah,
because the Kentucky fan base is completely turned on him.
Did they lose to South Carolina tonight?
I did not check that yet.
They did. They lost at home to South Carolina, 71.
Oh my gosh, he's done. And the thing
South
in
Carolina
Texas,
just got beat by a bunch too, didn't they? By somebody else.
Everybody says that buyout is too big. If there's anybody that can buy that out, it's Texas. I just saw some report that said, it's a public school, right? That like the surplus that's in the Texas budget right now from a governmental standpoint, and then Texas is making big bucks off football, has one of the biggest budgets in the country. If there's anybody that can buy it out.
And they don't have to pay.
It's a football school that can buy it out, not a basketball school. Like
they don't have to pay Beard, right? Because he was fired with cause, so they don't have to pay him at all.
Yeah, nothing. And you might talk Cal into like taking one of those restructured things where essentially whatever Texas is paying him helps pay the buyout or whatever.
Final question I have for you. I mean, we could go all night about Zach Edey's greatness, 600 rebounds, past that echelon. I mean, Braden Smith standing over Ohio State's guy and then realizing quickly I better not get a text, so I'm going to help him up while Ohio State goes in transition. I thought that
that's funny. A disrespect thing too.
Yeah, well, either way, Fletcher Lawyer burying shots. I mean, we could talk all night long about all the different bright spots of this program, and we've got all year as far as I'm concerned, and you've been so gracious, Bobby, and we always appreciate we don't take for granted the time you give us here. But I do have a final question for you regarding, because Illinois is playing Nebraska right now, and I'm thinking about the Sky Clark situation. What was your assessment of that? Illinois' program in general, they kind of tried to guerrilla warfare there. It's so much different than the way Purdue builds their program, right? They brought in all these different hired guns, so to speak, now in this NIL, kind of era we're in with collegiate athletes, and rightfully so. They deserve to get their money however they can get it. But in the transfer portal, it's kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to bringing players in. And Illinois has had a really rocky start to the beginning of their year. They're 1-3 in the Big Ten. They've had some tough losses. Now Sky Clark leaves the program for different reasons. Hard to say exactly what was your assessment of all of that and just what's going on with Illinois right now?
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously it's hard to say, as you said, since we're not there as far as maybe what's exactly going on, but from outside looking in, I think it probably, ties into a lot of the stuff we've talked about tonight, right? Like, first off, winning covers up everything. It cures a lot of wounds, winning, and they certainly have gone through some struggles from a winning standpoint. And when there's losing, that can amplify issues, of course. And as we talked about earlier tonight, that transition from high school to college is really tough. And Sky Clark was a really high-level prospect, really talented guy. And, just maybe due to other factors or just the difficulty of playing college basketball, maybe not, similar to what Ethan was talking about, maybe not having as much success as a freshman as he was hoping, even though, he was playing quite a bit of minutes for them, I think, and had started a number of games. Maybe the production, wasn't up to the level that he was hoping or expecting coming into the season. And then when you have the losing, maybe all that added together was just stuff that was causing him issues off the court or within the locker room or, between him and the coaching staff. We obviously don't know exactly what caused the leave of absence, but I would guess it's tied into a lot of those factors regarding just how difficult college basketball is his expectations for himself versus what was actually happening, the losing, all those combinations of things probably led to, his field to take a leave.
And weirdly, I mean, I shouldn't say weirdly enough, but just regardless, Sky Clark leaves and they have a big win against Wisconsin at home. And now they're up 15 on Nebraska. So maybe they're trying to reset a little bit. Maybe it was a wake up call for some of the other players on that team. They're certainly very talented, but haven't yet really put it together. And the Big Ten's always a gauntlet, even if you are a very talented team. And I think every team this year is going to take their turn having a week of struggles. So that's why you got to give Coach Painter and the players a lot of credit for, losing at home to start the week and staring 2 really tough road games down the barrel. It could have been their turn to have a 2 or 3 game losing streak, and it wouldn't have meant that they're a bad team. It just means the Big Ten is, it's a crapshoot when you go in. It's a coin flip every time you go into these games. Regardless of level of talent. Minnesota might be the only team that, may or may not give you a real dogfight, but even them
they're going over, Greg. They're going over in the Big Ten.
They very well could, but you know what? Some team, they might get the best on one team, and you don't want to be that team. So
maybe if Maryland has a really bad shooting night. What's that? Go ahead.
No, sorry. Yeah, like to your point, if another team went in there, had a poor shooting night, and if Jamison Battle went crazy on him, which he is capable, then it could happen. But
they took Wisconsin right down to the wire a week or 10 days ago or whatever it was. So you don't take anybody for granted here in the Big Ten, and we certainly don't take you for granted, my friend Bobby Riddell, our friend Bobby Riddell. Appreciate you coming on here tonight. We'll cut you loose and let you get to bed. Enjoy the rest of your night, but thank you again for coming on, and maybe here down the road we'll bring you back and reassess and see where the Boilers at when we reconvene.
Absolutely, guys. Always enjoy our conversations, and Brags, congrats on your number 1 pick.
The Chicago Bears are on the clock.
I expect
taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
We're going to trade back to the Colts for doing us the favor of losing to the Texans. We are going to return that favor by trading back to the Colts. Are you a Colts fan, Bobby?
No, I'm a Cowboys fan, but
you always say that, and I always forget that.
I'll help. When the Colts are doing well, I don't mind it. So
okay.
You being a Cowboys fan has all the feels of like that. IU basketball, Notre Dame football fan. I
think the Cowboys are in a really good spot.
When I was like 7, 8, 9.
Is there a story when you were little that like give me some connection so I can feel good about your Cowboy fandom?
Well, yeah, I mean, when I was like 7, 8, 9, the only football game I watched every year was the Super Bowl, and the Cowboys were in it every year. So when I was that age, and obviously they won a lot of them, and little kids like winners. So. And then I thought Deion Sanders was like a super cool athlete. And then after I'd already kind of started to like the Cowboys, Deion came. And so that kind of like helped.
He was only there for a year, right?
All right.
No, he was there like.
Oh, it's the Niners. I think he might only.
He played the Niners 1 year, won a Super Bowl.
Correct.
The Cowboys the following year won the
Cowboys. Because I had a Cowboys Deion Sanders jersey too. I was, Chicago all day, but Deion and Barry Sanders both transcended.
See, I have an excuse.
And we haven't won like any playoff games in like 20 years. So
I think you're in a really good spot this year. Last year, the way you guys finished seemed like you guys could have gone further in the playoffs. This year, Eagles, Jalen Hurts had the shoulder injury, compliments of the Chicago Bears. And, I just think overall, I think you guys are in a good spot here this year in the NFC, side of the playoffs. So I'll be rooting for you, Bobby. I'll be rooting for
Tom Brady. I'm going to need some consoling. I'm just going to say that from you guys. I need a hug.
And you should take it to him this time. So no excuses. Play like a champion. But Bobby, thank you again for coming on, and we'll talk to you here real soon.
All right, boys. Keep up the good work.
Yes, sir. Hey, thanks for tuning into our post games. It's very nice.
Good to see you, Bobby.
All right, later, Bobby. That is Bobby Buckets Riddell doing his thing. calling
I
the
was
games.
a Steelers fan growing up, Greg, but I have an excuse because the Colts weren't in Indianapolis when I was a little kid.
Mhm.
So I can pick some random team.
Steve Dodson is in the chat saying Kansas is tied with Oklahoma at home right now. I'm kind of searching around for that game. See if I can pull it up on my iPad. But for those of you that are still tuned in, we still got about 50 people in the live chat on YouTube. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but we've just been so deep into the Boilers talk. But please, on your way out, if you've been hanging out this long, I'm assuming you're enjoying what we're bringing here tonight with our coverage of Purdue men's basketball. Please hit the like button on the show, subscribe to our channel. We're going to continue the Purdue coverage we've been bringing. We've been bringing the heat all year. Last year we brought the heat. This year I feel like we're taking another step in our evolution here on what we're doing. We're calling these shows Boilers in the Stands, so we're doing it for, we're fans. We take a lot of pride in representing the fans in the stands, and I know all of you watching are huge fans. So please do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. It's going to help us grow on YouTube. We're on Twitter. If you follow us on Twitter, search Brags in the Stands, at Brags in the Stands, at Brags in Stands is the handle on Twitter. I have a Facebook group. We have the YouTube channel. But like I said, it would mean a lot to us if you could hit that like button on the way out, because then it's going to send it through that YouTube algorithm and find other Purdue fans that may not be aware of what we're trying to do here. We're doing live post-game shows immediately following games that are road games, because when the Boilers are playing at Mackey Arena, we're at Mackey Arena covering the game. We're fully credentialed for the whole season. We're, at the post-game press conferences, talking to the players and the coaches, and sit in media row there. And we're certainly very grateful for, the Purdue SID to take care of us and allow that for us and try to help us do what we're doing here. So please hit that like button. And yes, Copper Top says, we are still here because basketball is addicting, even though we need to go to bed. LOL. Haha. Yes, great show. Thank you so much for sharing in the Diehards page, Kraig. And that's the other thing too. That's the other aspect of what we are here. Kraig, is an administrator and founder of Boiler Diehards Facebook group. If you search Boiler Diehards on Facebook, you'll find this private Facebook group for Boiler fans only. And there's 10,000 members in there. They're all rabid fans. Diehard is not, they're using that for a reason, because these fans are, intense. On game day, there's a lot of interaction. They have a game day thread for football, basketball, every single game, people talking while the game's going on and giving their different assessments, sharing different things. There's a lot going on there too. So if you're a Purdue Boilermaker fan and you're on Facebook, you need to be joining this group. Kraig and the different administrators will vet you in, and then you can interact with other Purdue fans around the country. So, we appreciate everyone's support, everybody tuning in tonight. We had a really large crowd of live viewers, and we really appreciate it, because we're just trying to have fun with this, keep bringing you good coverage. Like I said, Friday night, Joe Jackson and Aiden Kuntz, who have been part of our post-game shows, and they do different things with us here. We kind of cross-promote each other. They have a Feed the Post podcast, which you can find on Spotify and Apple and Google. And they do a great job. They're also on Twitter at feedthepost_ is how you can find them there. They do a spaces, what they call spaces on Twitter. So after the game Friday night, if you want to hear this kind of conversation like we're doing on the post-game shows or what we do here, if you're on Twitter, they run a spaces, we hop in there, and then we all kind of share our thoughts on what we saw for the home games. And then the road games, we'll come back here and do live shows. So just bear with us. We're trying to do the best we can to bring you as good a coverage as we can.
I love how you still talk about spaces like nobody knows what it is.
Well, some people aren't on Twitter because it's a cesspool of,
I know.
Some people
But you're
got to
talking
stick
about it
to
like
this.
it's this foreign object from outer space.
Yeah, well, I mean, people that aren't on Twitter, when you say spaces, they're like, what in the, so I try to explain it for those that don't know. Some
I
people are like,
appreciate
I'm
it.
never going on Twitter. It's a cesspool, but I promise you, if you use it the right way, you can find the things that only you are interested in, and then you can try to avoid the craziness that can be social media. But sometimes there's no avoiding it at times.
Right.
But yes, I'll have to share with you, Kraig, my complete meltdown when the Chicago Bears had the number 1 pick. I'll send that to you and Bobby after the show. You'll have a very good laugh. Yeah, so hey, Cameron Haley, thank you very much. Coming from the Boiler Die Hard group, I've just gotten to know you guys here in the last few years, and we appreciate your support. I know Kraig appreciates everybody in there a lot. Continue to grow that page. We'll continue to promote it here on this channel all day long. But thank you to everyone from the Boiler Diehards group that tuned in tonight. So I think that about wraps things up, Kraig. What an amazing night. Thought we were only going to go for 20-25 minutes with Ethan Morton. Ended up going an entire hour, similar to what we had with Brian Newbert, and what I think it just speaks to the passion that we all have for this team. Yeah, we all have long-winded answers, but that's because we all, kind of really have a lot of passion for this team, and it just kind of oozes out when we start getting into these conversations. So I got to give Ethan Morton a huge shout out for giving us all of his time tonight. The glue guy, as I continue to call him, this guy, is somebody that I think Purdue fans, it's easy to root for a guy like Ethan Morton. And tonight was another example of why. He shows it on the court tonight. You got to hear why in this interview, and we are grateful for his time tonight. I thought you were going to say something, Kraig.
Yeah.
You're speechless. You're speechless.
No, man. Ethan was great, and Ethan and Fletcher were both great. When last year we didn't have any current players on, and I was actually really nervous. Sorry. Yes.
The only one we were allowed to harass
but that was like your buddy.
Yes.
So that was different.
Yes. The only one we were allowed to harass.
Yeah. So I was a little bit nervous about it, to be honest. And I've been impressed with, I shouldn't be, because they emulate their coach, and their coach is super honest. And he talks, he was talking today about his struggles with how he feels when they lose and that type of stuff. And how you try to grow as a program. And he's just really honest about it. And both players we've had on have been the exact same way he is. They've been honest about things they've struggled with and things they've had to overcome. And I think that's a reflection of Painter and them feeling like they can talk openly about that and know that it's not going to come back to bite them or anything like that. So, man, I thought both player interviews this year, both guys were just really good, really honest, and showed their character and the way that they conducted the interviews just the same way they are on the court, man.
Yeah, I mean, Fletcher Lawyer, cold as ice, man. I mean, he hits what could have been the game-winning shot against Rutgers. Then he hits the game-winning shot against Ohio State.
Well, and he hit a big one against Nebraska,
and
too.
then hit a big one against Nebraska. Great point, who we take on Friday night at Mackey Arena. Hit some big ones at Penn State. Just for fun, because we shared it at the start of the show, but for those of you that are just tuned in now, we'll share this from Kathy and Jerry Miller. They as I try to pull the dang picture off the screen, they had a great shot of Fletcher Lawyer burying the 3 at Ohio State, which we'll share along with you now. There it is. Fletcher Lawyer burying the shot. Thank you to Kathy and Jerry Miller for that awesome shot. from the stands. Like I said, we're the Fans in the Stands podcast all day long, always will be. So, yeah, Fletcher Lawyer, cold as ice, Ethan Morton, tough as nails, Zach Eady, a man amongst boys. I mean, it's just it's a special year, another special year. Yeah, hit that like. Thank you, Rue Dog. Hit that like, get more eyes on this channel. The more this grows, the better it's going to be for everybody. But it's just a lot of fun covering this team, being a fan of this team. They're an easy bunch to root for. And I just think the rest of the year is just going to keep being fun. Me and Ethan have exchanged a few DMs. I hear after the interview, he's thanking us, I'm thanking him. And it's just like, it just goes to show you, like you said, Kraig, the character of these guys. So Kansas is down 56-55 with 10 minutes and 48 seconds left.
Long time to go.
Long way to go. So we'll end this
home,
so we can all go and watch that to see if Purdue can hop a spot. At the end of the day, where they're ranked nationally doesn't matter as much. Yeah, of course, they get back to 2 or 1, great. Winning the Big Ten is their goal, and it should be the focus of Purdue fans going forward. Hey, being number 1 in the country is cool, but they've already done it here a couple times. Now they need to knock down winning the Big Ten, winning the Big Ten tournament, getting to the Final Four for the first time since 1980.
I'll take you. Can scrap those first 2, and I'll take the last
one. 100%. If you got to pick through them, but nothing wrong with that into that Big Ten regular season championship total, leading all schools in the Big Ten. So it's going to continue to be a fun year. We're going to continue to bring on great guests. We're going to continue to do great post-game analysis when we can. If we're not at Mackey, we're going to do them right here live for you guys to see on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And, thank you again to everybody that tuned in tonight. Thank you to our guy, Bobby Buckets Riddell, for once again giving us all of his time and support to what we do here. And for the final time, thank you to Ethan Morton for giving us an hour of really good stuff and some heartfelt responses and answers. So we appreciate it immensely. So without further ado, for Kraig Bowers, I'm Greg Braggs Jr., and this is Braggs in the Stands.